So I'm a big fan of Stephen Covey. How many people have ever heard of Stephen Covey? He wrote a book called The 7 Habits. In fact, when I wrote my first book, I stole his title. I'm fully admitted, I stole it from Stephen Covey. He hasn't come after me yet, but it's okay. And he wrote a book called The 7 Habits of... Good, so some of you have read it. Some of you have seen it. And some of you have it on your bookshelf, and one of these days you're going to get around to it, right? The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. And there are many things that Stephen Covey said in that book that I oftentimes quote, like put the big rocks in first, right? Everybody gets big rocks first? Yeah. Meaning start with the big task first, right? But there's something else that Stephen Covey says, which I think is really important this time of the year, which is, and he actually quoted Abraham Lincoln with this. He said, if I had 8 hours to cut down a tree, I would spend 6 hours doing what? Sharpening the saw. In other words, if I have a big task ahead of me, the smartest thing I can do is figure out how I'm going to accomplish that task and spend the most amount of time figuring out how I'm going to accomplish that task and then spend the rest of the time doing the task. Does that make sense? Yes. Now, how many of you guys have big tasks ahead of you in 2016? All right. Do any of those include real estate? Okay, so let me share this little teeny tiny little secret with you that if you actually take it to heart, might actually make a huge difference in your life, in your family's life, and in your bank account for 2016. So what is this teeny tiny little secret? It's this. We think that a new year has started and we have how many months? 12 months to get stuff done, don't we? Can I share a little secret with you? No, you don't. You have 10 months to get stuff done. And if you're really, really smart, you will use some of that 10 months figuring out how you're going to get it done and then spend the rest of the time getting it done. Does that make sense? So let me share insight into this teeny tiny little secret. Number 1. The best time to plan out a task is when? A, at the beginning, B, halfway through, or C, when you're like dying because the alligators are all over you. Right? The best time to plan out the task is when? At the beginning. So, little sub-secret. Number 1, January and February are 1 month. Write it down. January and February are 1 month. And all the English teachers in there, well, Sherman, if it is true, then it should be January, February is 1 month, not our 1 month. It's okay. What do I mean by that? February. Does that feel like a real month? Of course not. It's like, blink of an eye, it's gone, right? It feels like it's 2 weeks, doesn't it? Now, we know it's only 2 or 3 days short of the rest of the month, but it's, for some reason it feels short. January. Have any of you guys actually woken up from your holiday festivities yet? So January, most of us are like just getting started like today, right? Yeah. So if you combine January and February, you actually kind of get about 5 to 6 weeks. Now, would you rather have 2 short months or 1 like really solid fat month? So if mentally you say January and February are 1 month, and we've already agreed that we should be doing our planning at the beginning of the year, not the end of the year, right? Then why don't we use January and February to plan out what we're going to get done in 2016? And really commit the time. Oh, he used the C word. Commit. Why don't we commit the time to do some real strategic planning? Why don't we commit the resources to get the help we need to do some real strategic planning? And why don't we sit down and say, hey, where do I want to be this time next year so that 2016 doesn't end like 2015? Is there anybody in here who's ecstatic about how 2015 ended for you? Last year's goals, last year's plans, did you make them? Did you meet them? Some of them, yeah. But chances are you didn't do what I'm suggesting that you do, which is take the month of January. What's left of it? Take the month of February. How little time you got? Smack them together, call it 1 month, and do all of your strategic planning before the end of February. Everybody get that? Yes. Okay. Now, if you do January and February, how many months do we have left? No, we have 8. No, ladies and gentlemen, we have 8. And from March 1st to October 31st, whatever you had planned to do, get it done. And mentally say to yourself, I have from March 1st to October 31st, you have what?
8 months.
8 months. You have from March 1st to October 31st to get it done. Period. No excuses. So you spend your month of January, February planning it out, figuring out what you want to do, figuring out who you need to help you, starting to reach out to people. I love that exercise Jesse just did, which is a little sort of like baby networking. He does that a lot at the Dealmaker Workshop every Tuesday. Make sure you're here for the Dealmaker Workshop every Tuesday. So you put your plan together in January, February, you start making the connections you need at the end of February, and then come March 1st, you hit the ground running. You need a hard money lender, you should be lining it up before March 1st. You need a contractor, you should be lining up names before March 1st. You want to get out there and buy yourself 5 or 6 houses, you better have a plan for buying 5 or 6 houses before March 1st. You want to run into DC, buy an apartment building, convert it to a condo, you better have those deals under contract before March 1st. And if you have any plans whatsoever of doing commercial real estate, you better have those things under contract by March 1st. Or at least know who's going to help you by March 1st. Then come March 1st through October 31st, you start to implement your plan. You implement whose plan? Your plan. And you don't quit. Because y'all seen this on the internet, so it must be true. 90% of the people who quit work for the 10% who didn't. If your dream ain't no good, which is why you threw in the towel and quit halfway through the year, chances are because you didn't do any kind of serious strategic planning in January and February. You were just chasing the shiny objects through the water. Now, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands, but I'll raise mine. I didn't make a dime when I was chasing the shiny objects through the water. Oh, look, everybody's making money over here. Oh, look, everybody's making money over here. Oh, look, everybody's making money over here. And then you realize, hey, those guys made money 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. The way you make money is you figure out what you're going to do, and you take some time to plan out what you're going to do, like Stephen Covey says, and then you execute your plan. So we're planning in January and February, we're lining up resources in January and February, and we're hitting the ground running come March 1st. Why? Because come November 1st, what happens, people? Hello? Anybody here trying to close some deals in December? Anybody here trying to close some deals around? I'm not saying that you didn't, but was it a whole lot harder? And the reason why it's so much harder is because everybody else mentally shuts off. They're gone. And even if you're all excited, like, let's get this thing done. Team, let's get this thing done. Where's your team? Oh, we at grandma's house. Oh, we watching a football game. Right? It becomes almost impossible to get stuff done after November 1st. And y'all know that. Real estate is a team sport. I know there are other ways you can make money by sitting in your underwear at 2 o'clock in the morning. And there are some parts of real estate that's also true. But for the most part, this is a team sport. You need a team. You need to have your whole team rallying around what you're trying to do. In other words, they need to know what's your plan. What are you trying to do? So this is my teeny tiny little secret. Only took me like 6 minutes. I'll move on. Do your strategic planning in January and February. Build your team at the end of February, first part of March. But be prepared to hit the ground running and at least have some parts of your plan in place by the end of February so you can hit the ground running March 1st, because you only have 8 months to get it done. And if you are so lucky to actually have people hanging around waiting to help you in November through the end of December, God bless you. But you're working against yourself if you put everything that you need to do into the last quarter.